Hello, 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 hello. You can let me know your questions if you have any questions in the chat box. Okay, so first question is, I want to know how to deal with morning depression, especially from unrequited love. I'm waking up daily to this intense feeling regularly. Well, you see, this is the thing that there is no shortcut as such. There is no process to deal with any feeling other than to simply go through it. So the only knowledge that helps is that you are not the feeling, that the feeling is an arising. Because when you were asleep, there was no unrequited love, there was only pure love. But when you got up, immediately the I arose along with all the other objects, the separation arose. And in that separation, you long for the other, and that comes up as the feeling, the intense feeling. So sometimes just allowing the feeling to appear and play its part is the only way. Namaskar, Dominic. Okay, Harman says, how to deal with difficulty in making the right decision. You see, where is the challenge in making a decision? The challenge is always this, that I may make a wrong decision. So we are always scared that I may do something wrong. That is where the block is. But once you understand this fact that in the moment you will always make a decision based on your understanding, based on your conditioning up to that moment. So I would say that whatever you think is best for you, make decision according to that and then leave the outcome. Maybe that decision will be in your favor, or it may also happen that that decision does not go in your favor. When you're open to both of these outcomes, then usually there will be no hesitation, uh, no hindrance as such. So you will be more spontaneous in your approach to decision making. But till you cling on to the fact that I should not do anything so as to make a wrong decision, there are no right and wrong decisions. It's simply that one acts as per the best knowledge they have in a given moment. And sometimes the decision turns out to be in our favor, sometimes the decision is not in our favor. So you can't do much in that. So, yes, make the decision. How can we practice to be in the self always? It just goes out of mind. Yes, of course, because it is that way. There is no practice to be in the self. Self alone is. So, it is the self only which is pretending to be the mind, which is pretending to be going out of it and going within it. There is only the self, there is nothing else. So, nothing has to be done other than to simply witness the movement. It is a beautiful movement. Yes, it comes with its own set of challenges because when one is not resting as the pure self and one is moving as the mind, then there are difficult emotions that arise. And there is always this need to fight those emotions, to control those emotions. And that is where the suffering happens. So you cannot not be the self. You are the eternal self. So I would say that whenever you get this remembrance to be in the self, in that moment be. And when the mind starts its movement, allow that allow for that as well. Reminding to stay in witness is a challenge. I remind I am not this body, mind, and intellect helps, but to stay in this is difficult. See, this is the thing, no? Who is reminding to stay in the witness? It is the ego which is trying to be vigilant here because it has taken this up as a challenge that I have to stay in the self. What is the urgency to stay in the self? What are you going to get by staying in the self? It's not going to solve any of your challenges, any of your problems. The self is a pure knowing. Once you know the self, simply know, not know as an object, but simply know, then this question itself would dissolve. You don't have to do anything to be in the self or to repeat this mantra that I am not the body, I am not the mind, because you see, it is the nature of mind. When you say I am not, the mind identifies with I am not. That is why, Ramana Maharishi was not very keen on the neti neti method because he said, no matter what you do, whether you keep repeating, I am Brahman, I am Parabrahman, or you repeat that I am not this mind, I am not the body, eventually the mind makes up the identification. Either it makes the identification, I am this, or it makes the identification, I am not this. So the only thing is to completely allow the awareness to do its work. So sometimes you may feel that you are the body, that's also okay. Sometimes you may feel you are the mind, that's also okay. Other times you may experience the bliss of the pure self, that is also okay. So nothing is to be done as such. The whole path is of non doership. You already are the witness, so you cannot witness anything as an object. See, the whole point of this message is to relax as much as possible. We our In our culture we have been so conditioned to hard work to attain things by effort that we forget that something as basic as simple relaxation can sometimes be the most peaceful thing, may show us the glimpse of reality. And even in Zen teachings, it is emphasized that relaxation is the key. Because when we are too preoccupied with ideas of enlightenment, how to stay in the self, how to handle the thinking mind. We are always thinking of doing something. Let me do this to achieve that. It is all part of this play, this chase where we want to achieve an outcome. But total surrender, like in my case, it was total surrender because I could not just do anything about any situation. So I said, then let me just give it up completely. And in that giving up, the truth, it's the truth alone remained. So that is the only way to know it. There is no other way to know it. The more you, in fact, the more you try to know the reality, the truth, the self, the more you end up in confusion, because the mind will create an image of the self in your mind. That is the problem. That is the challenge. It is only the ability to relax, be completely with yourself, or as Ramana Maharishi said, just be. That is what it is. So Suman Das asks what to do with individual aspirations. Let the aspirations take their course. It is the nature of the biological organism to aspire for things. So let those aspirations happen. Now, what will happen is that some aspirations will be fulfilled and other aspirations will not be fulfilled. In both the cases, the outcome is going to be the same, that no matter what you achieve or what you attain, there is no true happiness in any of this, neither in attainment, not in the lack of attainment. So, in the end, what happens is surrender to peace and bliss, which is simply here and now. So, I would say let the aspirations, let the mind aspire whatever it aspires to. So, if if you are in work, do your work, no problem. Do your work with sincerity, make a good living for yourself. All those things are the need of the biological organism. So let that carry on. I would never say that don't do this or don't leave your job or become a monk. No, the knowing the knowing happens in the identification. It is not beyond the identification. So your job, your role, everything is, it is all identification, but it is also the knowing. So Juju says, do you think it's possible to already be enlightened without really having that one moment of realization? See, this is the thing. I don't know what enlightenment means. I don't know, like when you say how to be enlightened, I don't really know what that means. So, if enlightened means that we will be completely at peace all the time, or we will never show any negative emotion, that is not going to happen, because that is not how the biological organism is designed. Because I have seen sages and great saints also getting angry, and some of them also make mistakes. So I don't really know what enlightenment means as such. But there is one thing, that when one glimpses the reality, it may not happen as an experience. Sometimes it is a deep knowing which just happens, and you're not aware when it happened, how it happened, it just happens. So, in that context, I would say that no, it is not necessary that you have to have any experience, any special experience for this. Like, although I had um, a couple of experiences, but to be honest, that didn't solve anything for me. That didn't put me in a state of bliss, or that didn't take away my problems. My life continued to be more or less the same even after the experiences. But at some point, what happened was that the mind just gave up, because mind understood that all it's doing is futile, that I can't understand anything in its entirety. So the mind just gave up. So the need to seek answers, worldly answers about life, love, wealth, all those things begin to dissolve. I didn't have to do anything as such. So that was the point when I stopped reading books, when I stopped listening to talks as well. And I was just relaxing, simply relaxing all the time. Sounds very, this sounds very counterintuitive because we are told, we have been conditioned to believe that everything has to be achieved through hard work and it takes a lot of effort to attain something. But it's actually, in my experience, it's actually been the opposite, because I have tried that first path, meditating for long hours, and nothing happened with that. The more I relaxed, the more I went deep into myself. And at some point, the me personality dissolved, and what remained was the pure being. And this was way before I studied any Advaita or any teaching as such. This was my experience before coming to the teaching. So, whatever I speak with my own experience. Is anyone from New Delhi here by any chance? You can let me know in the chat. So Deepak says, if we stay in ourself, then it seems higher intelligence takes over our life. Yes, that is quite true. Again, I would say that um, this should not be done vigilantly. Like whenever you remember, you know, just remember to relax and be calm. Then automatically, what you find is that something takes over. The awareness takes over. You call it higher intelligence. I can call it awareness, and that itself is very, very peaceful. That itself is very relaxing, because then you're completely alone, all by yourself. So when I say alone, I mean that you're not with your thoughts at all. You are just pure being. So you actually get the rest of deep sleep in that time. And that is our true nature. Our natural state is our true nature. It is not the experiences, it is not the heightened visions, it is only the natural state. Because every experience, it comes and goes. But your natural state is always there. Your natural state is the substratum, it is the base. Without that, no experience is possible. But we get so caught up in this whole experience thing, and then people start chasing experience. And in that chase, the ego mind just strengthens itself, because it wants to experience, then it wants more and more experience. And the mind will show you ecstasies, it will show you the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And it is true that if you chase the highs, the mind will show you the lows as well, the lowest of lows as well. So one moment you will be in ecstasy, the next moment you will find yourself in depression. And that itself is a trap of the mind. But your natural state, this UG Krishnamurti, he said that the biological organism is inherently very peaceful. It is a very intelligent organism. It is very peaceful. It knows what to do, how to do things. And if you see that whenever you are operating in your daily living, when you have to take decisions, most of the stuff happens spontaneously. It is only later on when the mind comes up, no, with a feeling of separate self, it says that no, 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 it should be this way, it should be that way, it should have been, I should have done this, I should have done that. So that kinds of, creates this whole confusion and conflict and cognitive dissonance, that I could have done this better, I could have done that better. That's the game of the mind. So you don't have to beat the mind, you just have to know the mind. The knowing itself drops the game. So Suman says comparisons with others in terms of material accomplishments create a lot of suffering. Yes, true, very true. Comparison in any form will create suffering, not just in material accomplishment but also in spiritual accomplishment. People suffer the moment they make comparison. And in the book I Am That, Nisargadatta Maharaj says that the faster does not mean better. So what he meant was that some some people just awaken suddenly, they get the glimpse and everything is over for them, while for others they go through a long arduous path of suffering and experiences and this and that. But that does not mean that the one is more superior than the other, because when you awake you are the one being. That's it, there is no separation. So comparison breeds separation. So yes, that is true. So Juju says the automated thoughts that would rally on autopilot have just subsided. There's just a base contentment regardless of external situation or activities. Hence my original question. What was your original question? I'm sorry, I'll have to check that. There is just a base contentment regardless of external situation or activities. Yes, that I think that is, yeah, that is true. The base contentment is a very natural feeling. It is not the high or the low. So mind craving high comes up with this idea that, if I'm enlightened, that maybe I will remain in that high. But you see, that's not the way it is in duality. The duality comes coupled with the pain and pleasure. And true enlightenment is the acceptance of both the cycle, both the pain and the pleasure. Trying to uh, trying to catch hold of one and avoid the other is painful, is suffering. So Nisargadatta Maharaj would say that the river of my life flows between the banks of pain and pleasure, but I don't cling on to any side. I simply flow with life. So flowing with life is acceptance of life. And acceptance of life is base contentment that you're talking about. So yes, that is right. You are correct. So BS official says how to heal from trauma, and is spiritual healing and healers real? Healing is a happening. Healers are also an happening. Only the source is real. Only the awareness is real. Rest is all unreal. So you see, of course, life is all about trauma. I mean, life begins with a trauma. Birth itself is a trauma. And as you move, you find yourself experiencing a lot of trauma, psychological trauma, physical trauma, spiritual trauma, and things of those sort. But yes, the awareness only, the source only creates the trauma and the source only heals. So there is no such, in my opinion, there is no such thing as a healer. Yes, we can read, we can hear to teachers and speakers, and sometimes that helps, but they are all pointing to the same truth. So truth heals, not the teacher as such. So Gary says, I have heard some spiritual teachers say to meditate on the Omkar, which can be heard within by the ears. Is it the right way to meditate? Well, you see, it depends on the individual. There are many methods of meditation. But in my opinion, if you ask me, the true meditation is when everything dissolves. When the meditator dissolves, that is when true meditation happens. Till there is a meditator meditating on something, there is a continuous separation between the meditator and something being meditated. So I would say when the meditator disappears and Omkar alone remains, that is true meditation. So if in that way it is your experience that that happens, then maybe that is right for you. Okay, Suman Das says, would you please say something about toxic judgments, especially when they come from our loved ones? Yes, the toxic judgments do comes from our loved ones, but you see, a lot of toxic judgments also comes from within ourselves. If you observe carefully, we judge ourselves a lot and we are quite critical towards ourselves. So you see, all the shame and guilt that gets trapped within ourselves, it just gets triggered when our friends or people externally, you know, try to judge us or make comments about us. Yes, that happens. That is life. But when you know your true self, when you know your true nature, which is the most natural state, what happens is that the pain or the intensity of hurt that you feel, you may feel it in the moment, but it does not continue for long. Because deep down, there is this knowing that no one really gets hurt. The hurt is just an arising, it's a feeling, it's a sensation. It arises, it plays, and then it disappears. And of course, it is, I would say that we cannot even blame our loved ones because they are giving us only what they got. That is the way they were communicated to by their parents, and they are passing that on to us. So it happens that way. But when you are completely present, completely relaxed, none of this, none of these judgments and hurts affect us in that way. In the moment we may feel hurt for some time, maybe for a day, for two, we may feel hurt. but then subsequently it dissipates, and again we don't harbor any negative feelings towards our loved ones. So the harmony in relationship is still maintained. Okay, so Dominic says, is the teacher student internal energy and the teaching, just a second. Ah. Is the teacher student internal energy and the teaching externally? Dominic, I have not understood the question. Is the teacher student internal energy and the teaching externally? I have not understood the question, but what I understand is that everything is energy. The teacher, the student, the teaching, it is all the energy. The same energy is presenting itself as the teacher, as the student, as the teaching. It is one flow. So, according to my concept, there is no such thing as a teacher as a student. I don't see anybody as I don't consider myself to be a teacher, and I don't consider anybody else to be a student. All there is consciousness. That was the message. So, consciousness appears as you, consciousness appears as me, consciousness appears as everything, everybody. And this knowledge is not an intellectual knowledge, it is the knowledge of the heart, it is a deep knowing. So, when this knowing happens, then the knowing alone remains. Then there is no teacher, no student, no this, no that. There is no separation then. And that changes the perception of life. But you see, the daily living remains as it is. We still have people who we have disagreements with. We have fights also sometimes with our friends, with our loved ones. But there is no hate towards anybody because there is no resentment, there is no malice towards anybody. There is no ill feeling towards anybody because we realize that it is the same energy which is playing as the friend, which is playing as the relative, as the loved one, as the teacher, as the um, you know parent, grandparent. It is the same energy. And this happens even when the relationships are difficult. There may be disagreements, but there is never hate or resentment. You're welcome, Gary. Deepak says, no love, no hate state. Good to have that state. Yes, true, true. No love, no hate. The love that separates is not love. The romantic love is not the true love. Love is the pure being, the pure awareness, and which is something very natural, very ordinary, yet extraordinary. So Dominic says, I was leaning towards the observer verse experiencer moment energy again. Thanks, fellow being. The energy that drives one most addictive to negative pattern, can it be turned into a positive one? Of course, of course it can be. But you see, sometimes what happens is that one person, let's say an individual, has to go through a certain phase before they come to this understanding. In my opinion, this usually happens when one realizes that how their addictive patterns are causing trouble to their loved ones, when they deep down realize it. And sometimes it takes a long time for an addictive, for an addictive habit to dissolve in that case, because people don't get to know how their actions are hurting others. And sometimes throughout their entire lifetime the person remains addicted, and it does not turn into positive one. That also happens. So, if it is one's destiny, then definitely the addictive habits can change. And I think there is no harm to, to work towards that. It is always, one should not give into that, that there is a negative habit and I should not change it. No, do your best, whatever you can do. But yes, it takes time. It is something, it is a samskara, deep samskaras, which takes time to dissolve. Sometimes they don't dissolve in one lifetime. So yes, but yes, it is, the negative patterns can be turned around, it can be changed. So Juju says, my daily sadhana has remained the same for some time. However, I sense a thirst for expansion. Have you experienced this? Yes, I used to experience this when I was doing my practices. I used to do my practices a couple of years back. I used to experience this sense for expansion. I know what you mean when you say sense, a thirst for expansion. But you see, that is again a state. So slowly I realized that you are the infinite. So you are eternally, total, whole. So there is nothing to do as such to be that expansion. You are the expansion. You are the infinite. Once you recognize this, then all that energy begins to dissolve. And even the nature of practices also change. The nature of sadhana also changes. Now I do meditation mostly every day, but the nature of my meditation is very different. Like, I don't fixate on a method. Sometimes I would sit and meditate. I walk a lot, so I do a sort of conscious breathing while walking also. That is, but none of us got anything to do with attaining anything. My objective now is not to attain anything or to experience anything. So I don't do meditation or any sadhana to attain or to achieve anything. It is simply just to clear my mind, and that helps me to work better. That's it. You see, the whole energy of seeking is actually quite traumatic. So this energy, when it dissolves, it opens up door to a dimension, and that dimension, I don't know what to call it other than love. But it's complete. It's perfect the way it is. That's all I can say about it. Okay, Soman says, what could be the most fundamental essence across the major religious and spiritual paths. So, Suman, my understanding on this topic is that all major religions and spiritual paths are finally pointing to the same truth. Now, people may have different methods. Some may follow one particular method, some may follow no method, but eventually our destination is the same. It is all about peace and love. That's it. Now, the thing is that sometimes on the religious path, people get caught up in things that were meant to actually push them to a higher level. So I would say that, all the rituals and all, they are all fine, they are all good, but don't limit yourself to them. So go beyond the rituals and see what exactly is being conveyed there. So religion was basically a preparatory ground for spiritual evolution. So till you know, for those people who are not yet ready for the formless aspect of consciousness, for them sometimes religious path is the best path. And this even teachers like Ramana Maharishi or Ramakrishna Paramhansa, they never discouraged anybody from praying to a devotee or following any particular practice. In fact, Ramana Maharishi would tell people that, okay, you carry on with your practice. If you are doing japa, if you are doing japa, and if you have a particular devotee, particular deity in your mind, do that. He never said that that will not lead to self realization or that is wrong. He never discouraged anybody. So I think that all these religions and spiritual paths are actually preparing us for the higher truth. Thank you, Juju. Thank you, Deepak. So I guess we can conclude for now. It was wonderful to be with all of you. I know this was unannounced, but I felt like speaking to you, so I came. Thank you all. I wish you all peace and happiness.